All right. Hello, I'm Lisa with IVF Manifesting a Miracle, and today's guest is a friend of mine, and it's kind of a unique fertility connection that we have. Her name is Ellen Trachman.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome. And she is a managing attorney of Trachman Law Center, and her specialty is assisted reproductive technology, which you don't always get to meet a lawyer who specializes in this. So
I meet them all the time. I go to conferences and there's hundreds of us. So,
well, for my followers, listeners here, this is a unique opportunity, I think, to really connect with you. And we met through Colorado Fertility Advocates here in Colorado.
I think we met before that. I think we met at Resolve Walks.
You were right.
Yeah.
You know what? You did. Thank you for remembering that.
It's okay. I know our meeting meant a lot to you then, but
oh no, we were volunteers. You're right. For the Colorado Walk of Hope. So that was last summer. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I don't know how this happened, but I feel like I've gotten to know you better through.
Yes, absolutely. That's right.
It's really just an honor to get to know you better, be friends, and we're in this together.
Honor to get to know you better as well. No, it's been a pleasure.
Can you share a little bit about how you got into assisted reproductive technology, in the law, that specialty?
Yeah, I always think it's funny that when I go back to thinking about law school, there was this one, when we were 1Ls, there was this class and they had someone raise your hand if you want to do corporate law, raise your hand if you want to do litigation. And that was it. Those were the two choices. And I was like corporate? I don't know, right? There was no assisted reproductive, hey, who raise your hand if you want to do assisted reproductive technology law? So definitely wasn't anything I had heard of back when I was in law school. Mm-hmm. So when I graduated, I actually ended up being a hedge fund attorney, of course, naturally, why not? I actually had not heard of hedge funds in law school either, maybe vaguely, didn't know a lot about them.
Where did you go to law school?
I went to Emory in Atlanta, and I went to undergrad at University of California, Berkeley. So after undergrad, I moved back to the Bay Area, and I worked with this big international law firm, Sidley Austin, in their hedge fund investment management group. I think they're the 9th largest firm in the world. So it was huge and cool. I got to work with Hong Kong and London, and it was great. And it was sophisticated area and lots of really fun clients, but at the same time, I felt like I wasn't really making a difference. I didn't have kind of that personal connection with clients. And I was really looking for something that I would find more personally fulfilling and meaningful. And it was when I was in San Francisco that I was living with friends of mine, a gay couple, and they were trying to figure out kind of their family future. And at that same time, my sister was going through infertility, and it was just kind of all around me. And I got the chance to look at this egg donation contract, and I was like, oh, this is an area of law too. That is fascinating. Wow. And I kind of got it in my mind that I really wanted to learn more and do this area. And so it took years later until I finally had the guts to quit corporate. And I mean, unfortunately, I can tell a personal story. I had multiple deaths in my family at kind of the same time. That was kind of traumatic. And it was when I was watching these TED Talks and I was like, don't regret your life, do what you love. And I was like, I should do that. That thing I've been wanting to do, I should really do. Yeah. So I had that awkward conversation with my boss. And quitting? Oh, where are you going? Starting my own firm in an area that is not corporate. Wow. So it was, scary and exciting.
How long had you been a lawyer at that point? When you branched off into your own?
So I had been working in hedge funds for 7 years.
Okay.
Doing corporate work in that area.
Roommates kind of inspired you to really investigate this a bit more, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And I had been doing work on the side to learn about the area and just hadn't had that kind of that kick to do it.
And then having a sister too. So it is very personal to you, although you haven't gone through infertility challenges yourself.
Right.
But it's kind of what inspires you the most, in this field, choosing this area and in it for as long as you have been.
Well, in a way, I like to refer to it as happy law, that I actually get to do something that has a happy ending, that you're not trying to, tear someone down or, But at the same time, I really am working with clients who it hasn't always been happy until then, where they've really been through so many long struggles and been through so much by the time they really consider, that they need to have a contract with an egg donor or work with a surrogate. But I think it's amazing to get to, play that little role of protecting them as they go through this process, and then to see, for those I get to see become parents, like, when your child comes in your office, wait for to see that moment happen to people to get that opportunity to be that strong person, also have a child who can wander in and out of their professional life. It's just like, I love just seeing that moment. It's like absolutely beautiful to get to see that happen. So it's just been an amazing area, and I just feel so much more fulfilled getting that opportunity to work with people.
Yeah, like I can't even imagine what you've come up against, and having a lawyer never really crossed my mind when we embarked on this process. I mean, it was all through our clinic and pretty smooth sailing, well, relatively, we didn't have any like legal type of issues, but can you even just kind of share, like, what are some things that you come across?
Yeah, and so I really what I specialize in assisted reproductive technology, or third party. There's a lot of names for family formation, but when you really need an attorney is when there's another person involved. So it's not just you, or not just you and your spouse, but you're relying on an egg donor, a sperm donor, an embryo donor, or a surrogate, or you're one of those people where you're raising your hand like, I want to be a donor and help someone. And that's a situation where I come in and help, because there's all these legal complexities and not a lot of market standard of how some things fall out. So we have to really talk about those and work it out between where liabilities are and how things will work between you, and if there is a problem, what that will look like.
Do people seek you out? Like, how does that happen? I mean, has it been hard, like, you're drafting up the forms to send to the clinics, or like kind of
so a lot of my work is the contract between a donor and the recipient, or a surrogate and the intended parents. And so yes, so sometimes people are what you call independent, where they match themselves and they have to seek out an attorney on their own. Other times they're with an agency that help match them, and then the agency will say, okay, you're at the point where you need a legal contract, so here's 5 attorneys in the state you should go use. You each need an attorney. So a lot of my referrals are either from finding an attorney themselves, Googling. I need to work on my SEO, I guess. Hopefully this video will help, right? But agency referrals, clinic referrals, other referrals when you reach that point. Because really, when you're using a donor or a surrogate, you then suddenly are in this new world where there's just a lot of players, where you're having the clinic and you're having maybe an agency, and maybe there's an escrow holder, and you probably have insurance issues you need to worry about, and you're talking to an insurance broker, and there's just a lot of professionals that get involved to help you through that.
Wow. Is there advice you give to people that are, struggling through some infertility and maybe thinking, I might need a lawyer, or like, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know like the right question to ask, but
I don't know.
From a legal perspective, like, is there any advice that?
Right. I mean, we're one step of the puzzle, and we're an important part, I'd like to think, of protecting you and protecting your family from both sides. And we can also be a great resource early on if you're still figuring out, clinics or agencies or insurance. That we work with all of those, and so have a good sense of
like
thoughts to help you with those.
Choosing what agencies in just Colorado is kind of what you focus on, right?
So as an attorney, I'm licensed to practice law in Colorado, New Mexico, and California. So all those 3 states.
That's good. That's good to hear. And what are some, I mean, can you even share like some experiences or stories of some, I don't even know, from clients that like we could learn from some of their mistakes, or is there anything like advice-wise that you can
Yeah, I mean, as an attorney, obviously, if you have an issue, I am your confidant, and I keep your information private unless you so choose for it to be public. So I cannot publicly share the juicy stories unless you so choose. But one way it's been really nice to kind of be able to communicate and tell stories and get not only personal stories out there that I think others will find inspiring or help them in their journey, and also talk to professionals, is the podcast. I think you were going to ask me about that at some point, but just to throw it in there because it's a good place to mention it. So together with my sister, Jennifer White, we have a podcast called I Want to Put a Baby in You, which I apologize that we thought was funny, and we still kind of think is funny, but understand that's not funny to everyone. But despite the title, I think we're on like 80 episodes now. Wow. And there are so many amazing stories, and we feel so fortunate to all the people that have been willing to talk to us. And just, there's a lot of array of stories where we have donors sharing their stories of why they donated and how it went for them, recipients on their side, intended parents, lots of dramatic stories. Like I love, there's one kind of early on, David Latt, who is the founder of this website I also write for about the law, and he talks about, you know, rushing to make the delivery of his son, and like having a transfer in, I think, Chicago, and being at like gate C and getting that call that his son was born, and like, I don't know, all these like amazing stories that people will share.
We'll have to check it out. It's I Want to Put a Baby in You, right?
Yes, I Want to Put a Baby in You. And if you are a legal, I don't know what we call ourselves, dorks, I don't like there is a lot of legal ones as well. We do have an inclination to interview a number of attorneys, just because, you know, of course I have a personal preference of like hearing all of these great legal stories. So we have a lot of experts in that area, especially with some really fascinating legal cases. So there's been a number of cases with, you know, couples fighting over embryos is a big one, and how the law treats that. And there is just a lack of consistency between
couples, like if they're separated, fighting over the embryo, right?
Exactly. That if you and your spouse go through IVF and then you have embryos remaining and you divorce, and one wants to use them and one doesn't, it can be really messy. And so we have, like, there's an episode with Tim Schlesinger. He talks about this really heated case in Missouri that he worked on. That's really fascinating.
Wow, definitely want to check out more of your episodes.
Oh, if you don't mind me throwing like another like really fascinating one out. So another area I've been writing on a lot that isn't like directly, hopefully not your clients or people listening to this, but a lot of people from DNA tests are finding out that they were donor conceived and their parents didn't tell them, or they were donor conceived, they knew it, and it turns out their fertility doctor is their father.
I've heard that. It just is so
there's so many of these cases. It's crazy how common it's become.
Come across this quite a bit.
But yes, unfortunately. And I have to tell you, we interviewed Eve Wiley, who is an absolute inspiration, and her story, I am 100% sure, will be a movie at some point. So look her up. She's like absolutely beautiful, but she's from Texas.
Say her name.
What's that? Eve Wiley. Mm-hmm.
Eve Wiley.
So we have a podcast episode where we interview her, but she's done like TV interviews and all this stuff, and she's a huge advocate out there now. But she tells her personal story that, you know, she had her mother and father and sister, and her dad unfortunately passed away when she was young. I think she was maybe 7. Mm-hmm. And when she was 16, she tells about how her mom was the school nurse. And so she was snooping her mom's email because she thought she'd like find dirt on fellow students. And she came across something about insemination, and she thought, oh, you know, the cattle, because she lived in Texas. Like, oh, the cattle. But then she saw her birth date, and she was like, what is this? And so she looked further, and she found these emails about how she was donor conceived. And so she asked her mom, and her mom has been very supportive and told her that, yes, like, we had problems conceiving. Yeah. So we chose this California Cryobank Donor 106, and we were so fortunate that we had you. And then when she turned 18, her mom helped her through the clinic find Donor 106. And so they met up and they formed like this beautiful like father-daughter relationship. He officiated her wedding when she got married years later. But then, so 13 years after she had met him and had this great relationship, she had kids, and one of her children had medical issues. And she decided DNA test, hoping they'd find some more information. And that's when she found out that actually Donor 106 wasn't her father. It was the fertility doctor that treated her mom. And she I mean, she just went on this journey and she worked to change the law in Texas. Because when she found out that he had no liability and no responsibility, that he used a donor and, you know, I could use myself, whatever, that she changed the law. And now there's a law passed in Texas about fertility fraud. And she is helped other states as well. Absolutely an inspiration. So.
That is fascinating. Do you still, I mean, please don't tell me there's still really fertility doctors that are doing this.
What's that? So there was one in Colorado. There was a case here, and we also have a law pending about fertility fraud as well. And you know, shout out to Representative Carrie Tipper, who's been a lead on that as well. So she's been great.
This is separate from what just passed in Colorado. You're talking
yes,
about?
Separate. Well, yes. I mean, definitely separate. I was trying to remember if the fertility fraud had passed yet. It's been flying through, but I don't think it passed before they went on break.
Yeah, I mean, clinics need to be held liable. I mean, right? These doctors, how they just, I can't.
I mean, the good news, I don't think any doctor, hopefully most doctors don't do it now because
I mean, it's just like still something that goes on. I don't know.
I hope not. I really hope not.
Oh my gosh. Well, the good
anyway,
news.
Sorry to derail us on that.
No, I mean, it's so fascinating to me. I just, talking to you is, I love it. And with our new law that just passed, like, well, first of all, you know, with Colorado Fertility Advocates, how did you even get to be a part of that organization? Who reached out to you on that?
Yeah, started it. no one reached out. No. So
and you and you know.
So really, it started from another agency owner, Angela Bevel,
okay.
and us and Jennifer White. Sitting down at having drinks, and I'm trying to remember the place we went, and we were really, this conversation started about there should be something that brings professionals together, there should be more standards in the area. And even though the conversation really started from, hey, these like rogue agencies are popping up everywhere and people don't know who to trust, it grew into something also not just talking about how to establish someone that they're meeting expectations, they're using best practices, but bringing together other professionals. So then we started figuring out who would be good. And we've been so lucky to get a mental health professional, Allison White, to join, Dr. Shaughnessy from Conceptions, who else is Christina Yanetso, an ER doctor who had separately started this big movement about fertility advocacy. So she was great. And actually it was hilarious because when we started the organization, we had like this really long name we were throwing around, and like the initials were like CFAAPQ, okay. You know. And we're like, oh, we need something shorter. So we decided Colorado Fertility Advocates. And then, so also invited Crystal Wilson, who's amazing, had been advocating on the federal level. And she's like, hey, there's this website. So she's like, I'm gonna start a Facebook for us. Hey, there's already a Facebook that's Colorado Fertility Advocacy versus Advocates. And that's what Christina Yanetso started. We're like, well, let's go find out who does this. And so luckily joined forces, but I was like, that's so close. But yeah, so it was really amazing getting everyone, starting to get people together and then having an event in person. And we were overjoyed when the first in-person event, there was over 50 people. We like exceeded our room capacity. That like, just bringing everyone together, there was such positive response. Wow. And then, you know, help just figuring out how we can improve the situation in Colorado and proposing this new law to have better fertility access. I mean, it was, yes, Colorado Fertility Advocates was a big part on the front, and but there was all these professionals. That you were there for Advocacy Day. Just over 100 people registered for Advocacy Day.
Incredible.
So, we played like this small role, but just like the whole community coming together, and locally and nationally, where we had Resolve like absolutely backing us up and flying out, you know, Betsy Campbell to testify, and the clinics, you know, their doctors to testify, like Dr. Sarah Barton like gave me shiver, like how good her testimony was. It was just incredible to see.
And just everyone. The process, you know, going through the House, and then I've learned so much through this. Senate, and just like all the stuff.
I did too. It's like, okay, it goes to the House, the hearing, to the floor, the 3 readings, and then the Senate. Yeah.
And so for those that don't know,
it was a long process.
Families Act passed on April 1st, April Fool's Day. It really passed,
Yes.
and it became our
Not April Fool's joke though.
exactly. So our governor signed it into law. And how do you feel as a lawyer? Like, are you seeing any? I know this doesn't go into effect until 2022, but just from your perspective, like, how is it going to change what you're doing as a lawyer? Do you see?
Yeah, and just for those who are like 2022, like please know, like when we first saw that date, we're like, really? But that like this process, like changing the law takes forever, and especially with insurance, like the policies are determined like so far in advance, and
Okay,
that was
so
like
you
the
don't
early
choose that,
date.
obviously. Like that's how does a date even come about? Like,
Yeah. I mean, and the other part to understand, I mean, there's so many parts of the law that it only applies to those insurance policies that are covered by Colorado law, because there's a huge percentage of insurance that isn't under Colorado law. It's under federal law. So if you have an ERISA plan or a self-funded ERISA plan, and I had to learn more about ERISA and self-funded than I ever wanted, then the law doesn't apply. It only applies to the Colorado plan. So we were like, you know, we changed law to what we can, but it's important to know like whether that law applies to my insurance may be a factor. So I think I'm really excited. I think if anything, in terms of my practice, it'll be increasing the access and availability for people to be able to have fertility treatment, to be able to access the doctors they need when they might not have been able to afford it before. So yeah, so I think it'll be a good thing. I don't, in terms of like legal and, you know, the contracts that you do and donors and surrogates, like there's no direct change, just like a general overall good change that more people have better access to the fertility doctors they need. So maybe I'll have more work because of just like a general access, but you know,
in
maybe
2022,
not.
so that date was set by who? Who sets the date? Like, do you
Oh, who set the date? I mean, there was so much collaboration in this. I know the representatives were really involved in the and insurance professionals to figure out the earliest date that it could become effective.
Yeah, I know so many are eager to take advantage of that coverage.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's funny. I didn't know Jennifer was your sister.
Yeah,
I met
yes.
her, and knowing that you guys both do the podcast, for some reason it just didn't dawn on me that you were both sisters. But the sister
We get that.
that was going through fertility challenges.
And actually, in our podcast, I don't know if you listen to the podcast, but I think we mentioned it. We mention it quite often, and then we're always surprised when people are like, "Oh, you're related." Yes, that we're sisters. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I'm the younger one. I'm no less race than that. Let's give her a hard time.
You're a mama of 4, right?
Yes, I am very, very fortunate that I have four young kids that are currently 3, 5, 7, and 9. I know you said you didn't know when you were going to air this, but currently remote schooling has been really difficult.
Those ages are challenging. So, I mean, hitting all those levels of education where you're doing homeschooling as best you can, huh?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the kindergartner likes to run away from his Zoom calls and hide from them, so that's a challenge.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. Well, you're juggling a lot, and I just am amazed. You're a super mama, and just
thanks. You're so kind. You as well.
You do quite a bit. Thank you. Any kind of last tips for people? Can you think of anything like if I know just couples who so what you do, you provide more services for the third party, kind of is your specialty.
Yeah, my legal specialty really is in that surrogacy, donor, embryo donation world.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we went through our process, our clinic kind of guided us through a lot of forms you have to sign, right? Someone passes away, what happens to your embryo? I mean, just all the things you don't even think about, right?
Right.
Divorce or death, or if you have any remaining embryos, and what do you do with your embryos? And there's a lot of forms. There's
definitely a lot of things to talk about. So, I mean, we're always attorneys like me, and I'm not, there's like 9 other attorneys in the state who specialize in the area. So there's a lot of good resources to talk about those.
You're not the only unicorn here in Colorado.
There are other unicorns, as you know. But I mean, even if you're not using a donor or a surrogate, there are really good questions like that are worth talking to an attorney. So like, I'm having embryos created. What do I do once my family is complete? Do I want to donate them? What would that look like? I mean, there's so many issues? Would there be future contact? What kind of liability might I have? Do I have to pay other costs? Maybe I want them destroyed. Maybe I want them donated to science.
Right.
There's a lot of options, and legally they can make a big difference. So I mean, we're always a good resource to talk through those kind of issues.
Your website, can you share that? I'll link it when I post this, but will you share your website?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my general advice is that most of us are actually, like, despite being lawyers, like we're really nice and we like want to help people, and you know, most of us give free consults, so we're always like, we're happy to schedule time or to get on a call and kind of just talk through with you what questions you might have and see how we can help.
Excellent resource. I definitely think people should take advantage of reaching out to you.
Yeah. But yeah, no, my website is www.trachmanlawcenter.com, which is TRACHMAN
I'll link that there. And one thing we didn't talk about too, but you're also co-director of Colorado Surrogacy. So,
right.
whole other topic we could get into.
Right. But the website, and please check out the podcast. We feel like it's a great resource. If you ever have ideas of people to come on, please let us know. And then also check out things like Colorado Fertility Advocates, where we're having, you know, hopefully after this passes, we'll have more in-person events. We're hoping to get some virtual ones, but really bringing the community together, both professionals and patients and advocates to, I mean, I feel like we can all do a better job of supporting each other once we connect like that.
For sure. For sure. Well, thank you for talking with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Much good advice to share and good resources. So for anyone else who has any more questions legally, I'll post Ellen's website, and for fertility coaching support, you can message me and reach me at ivfmanifestingamiracle.com. I'm here to provide coaching support and just fellow fertility sister to support you on this journey. So thank you, Ellen.
Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Bye.